It is a normal human function, completely natural. No need for shame, no need for stigma. Everybody does it. Your parents, your neighbors, and some do it multiple times a day. Ranting is universal, and Lewis Black has raised it to an art form.
Right now, I'm on Snapchat. That's right, Snapchat. This is what I've jumped to. Go ahead, swipe up and draw your on my face, you jackals.
From The Daily Show to the stages that he only dreamed about being on when he was at the Yale School of Drama, Lewis Black gives voice to not just his many, many, many grievances, but also to our own.
Last year I ranted about my sister not coming to your show, even though she was invited. She said I didn't invite her. She's a lying.
You know, if anger had a face, well, hey, you know what? Actually, it does. This is it right here. But the voice behind that face, behind all that anger in a Pixar movie is all Lewis Black, and he is my guest for the hour, and I couldn't be happier about it. Lewis Black, I can't tell you how good it is to see you, and I find that really weird considering you're always so angry.
I'm not always. If I was like that all the time, I would be, I'd be dead. I would 3 days at that level.
I have often wondered that, my friend. I've often wondered, watching you with these unbearably funny rants, when you're wagging your finger and your blood vessels are like standing out, how is it that you haven't been cautioned by your doctor that this is a job hazard?
Well, because actually I have, I believe in part because of this, a perfect blood pressure. I mean, it's the only thing. Everything else is probably rotting. But whenever I go to whatever doctor for whatever, they always, when they take my blood pressure, go, well, that's phenomenal. This is perfect. And I was even once early on when Esquire magazine did a little thing on me. It was when I was first, they first discovered me yelling and screaming about something, and they had me hooked up to a thing to check my blood pressure, and they would make me scream and then see how fast it returned to normal, and it was like record time.
So it's not crazy that I actually wondered if this was safe for you to perform at such a high octane level. Someone else had that thought too.
I'm always asked. Everybody, my audiences, they always go. I get, when there's stuff on Twitter, Facebook, it's like, I saw you. I can't believe it. I get so worried that you'll keel over. But I think it's like it's my it's a form of exercise when I'm on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume it's a hell of a workout. Yeah, it's cardio. Good for you. You're working it into your work. But well, I have often wondered.
You said that today. He said that's cardio.
So you're good.
Apparently.
So I've often wondered, when you're gearing up for, I think I read something crazy, like you do 150 shows a year in a normal year. Obviously, not this year. How do you get that much energy?
Well, it's in part, it's not as many as 150. Now it's probably about 100 to 120. But I was at really, when it was peak, it was up to maybe 150, 170 if you brought in everything. And the energy's easy because I take naps, and that's an important, that's vital. But also because the one thing about walking on stage in front of 1,000 people, 800 people, 1,500 people is you get the energy that is focused on you, that they give to you, that you can't measure it, but you can feel it, is astonishing. And that's really what gets me through.
We were just looking at pictures of you with your It Gets Better Every Day tour with the rainbows and the unicorns. And ironically, wasn't that launched right before all of a sudden COVID shut you down?
Yes, it was. And it was also, and during the midst of when I refer to him as our former leader, that was why I kind of came up with that. Because I thought, what else could you describe? Everybody is, it gets better every day. He's just doing a hell of a job. But then it was like, wow, this? So it really, and it was a level of sarcasm that I was thrilled with, and it turned on me quickly.
Boy, did it, right? Like
And-
how
and like-
ironic.
and it really is ironic, and what's even more ironic is that because we don't have time with if and when and if all goes well and everything kind of moves the way they tell us it's moving, that when I go back on tour, we don't have time to change the name and come up with new stuff. It'll be called It Gets Better Every Day.
It gets better every day. Well, I mean, strangely, it certainly was applicable because I think that's kind of what everybody needed to hear. And technically, every day we got closer to the end, it certainly got better. I think as I read, though, that it yielded to a special that was called Thanks for Risking Your Life. And can I just play a quick soundbite of it? It's very funny. Like, nothing you do isn't funny, but this was particularly funny. Let me play this. Have a look.
When I was a child, I would get down on my hands and knees every night and I would pray, please, dear God, when I get older, please let there be 2-day free shipping.
You have just this way about you, even when you're not ranting. It's weird. You're delightful in your curmudgeonly way.
Well, I don't know where it comes from. I guess partly from genetics. Starting with my grandfather, who was really an amazing. He's the one who'd give you an idea of where genetically it came from. He's the one who said, "This is some life. You're born in Russia and they bury you in New Jersey." That's the kind of gene I came out of.
Did you know that was funny? Did you like when he said that when you were a kid? Did you know that was funny, or did you just think that was the way the world was? Everyone talked like that.
Oh no, I thought it was really funny, seriously funny. He didn't crack a smile. That was a toss off. He didn't even think, he would throw this stuff out. He'd never smile when he was saying this stuff. Every so often he'd say something that he thought was funny. It was never as funny as the other stuff. It was really dark.
So
I just tried to lighten it.
Because you're deadpan a lot as well. I mean, I laugh and I wonder how you're not cracking yourself up sometimes when you're on your rants. But I wonder, maybe this is kind of you. I don't know if you've always been like that, if you honed this character. How much of it is really you all your life? Did you just scream at your classmates in 8th grade?
Well, I kind of was sarcastic. I mean, I was always kind of sarcastic. My mother was really, my mother is still, still sarcastic. So I kind of got that sword from her, and I was cynical and everything, and it was like that thing where there's my father. I would sit there and I would, these things that I talked about in my act, you're climbing under your desk when they would say, in case of a nuclear attack, get under your wooden desk. Stuff like that would stick with me. And so I always had this thing with authority. So all of that kind of came together. And so I wasn't really yelling in school, but I was the kid in the classroom. If there was that moment where it had gone on too long and people were it was dull. And my friends were also like this, that we were the ones who would go, okay, we need a laugh here. And that's when you'd bring something up. And that was really where it started. And then I discovered, God, really, it took a while, that I was funniest when I was angry. And that took me a while. And then I realized that's the way I've been most of my life. That's when I'm funniest.
So I love that, because there are very few, comedians whose parents, I love the pictures I was looking at of Sam and Jeanette, are your parents. I think you lost your dad at 101 years old? That's unbelievable. And your mom is 102 currently, is that right?
Yeah. As I say, I could be a reptile. There's a possibility that I'm alien. Yeah, no, it's really. And my father died of natural causes. It's insane. And my mother
At 101.
At 101, he'd gone to sleep, and the body just gave out. That was really what happened. And it seems to be my mother is kind of slowly moving toward that, but still, as long as there's a reason to be ticked off, my mother's going to live forever. I mean, as long as she can turn on CNN and catch what's going on, there's nothing's going to stop her.
Well, obviously, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I want to play something, particularly because a lot of comedians use profanity. Some comedians use none at all. And it's very applicable in circumstances. I think I noticed here that you've got a fan club. I can read out the name of the fan club, but our audience will have to, you know what I'm going with this. They'll have to extrapolate what the acronym is. Frustrated Union of Cynical Kindreds Universal. I'll let you think about that for a minute. In the meantime, here is this bobblehead, apparently, that your fan club loves, that apparently you can sell this bobblehead, and they eat this bobblehead. I think we have to beep the H out of it, though. So have a look at this. This is the bobblehead from I can't even say the name of the Frustrated Union of Cynical Kindreds Universal. Take a look.
Go yourself. Nobody gives a shit. Holy tough skate. Are you me?
So, Louis, that is what the kids say these days is NSFW, not safe for work. But I want to know what your parents think about your, liberal use of profanity in your act.
It never bothered them. I got that language really from them, so it was tough for them to yell about it, especially my mother. Not the F word, but even that one, a little bit of that. But she used it, and in a way, it became in part the way that it's kind of the way I talk. I used that language. So to me, it was never bad language or, to me, it was not that kind of a thing. And what's amazing about that bobblehead, it sells like crazy, but all of the thing I'm proudest of is, since it does sell like crazy, is all of that goes to a variety of charities that I, care about. So all of the money, I get none of the money. The money goes right out to folks who actually really need it.
Oh, I love hearing that. Thanks for telling me that, because I did not know that. So there we are, looking at you, particularly when you're out doing your appearances. When, Louis, I every night on the DVR had The Daily Show, so I was treated to your delightful ranting once a week. And when we come back after the break, I want to ask you a little bit about your tenure on The Daily Show and how on earth it worked so beautifully to be the opposite of the moment of Zen. That's when we come back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Louis Black!
Stark Raving Black, what a great production. Did you ever think when you were at Yale, getting your MFA from the Yale School of Drama, that you would have the career that you have had and continue to have, Louis?
No. What I thought I would have would be I'd be teaching playwriting somewhere, and theater, and writing plays. That's really what I thought. And maybe doing a little acting, because I'd started to do that, and maybe doing some comedy on the side. And but that was really what I thought I'd be doing.
And you actually pursued that. As I read about you, you were the playwright in residence at the West Bank Cafe Downstairs Theater Bar in New York City. Is that where you figured, hey, look, I've made it. I'm in New York City. I'm writing plays. Broadway might be next. But how did sort of comedy bleed into that and change your direction?
Well, I started doing, and it was great. The West Bank Cafe Downstairs, we had this little 100-seat kind of what was, a bar and a theater. and it was that was where I'd always kind of been doing comedy on the side, just for fun, like a hobby, in part because it allowed me to write and get the writing out there, and I was always kind of fascinated by the process, but I really was much more interested in working in a group with other people, not just by myself on stage, and it took a long time for me to get comfortable on stage as a comic. That was the part that I never understood, how people just kind of really got, I'm going to make you laugh. Really? I could do it sitting around a table. I could, I was killing, 6, 7 people around the table. Put me on stage. No, but then the more I worked is when I worked down at the West Bank, every night I would introduce everything, the shows that we were doing. And I started to get more comfortable up there, and people didn't really expect me to be funny, so it kind of freed me up, and it was that point that I started to really become more and more in touch with just the craft, and on the weekends we would do a free show where folks who wanted to do comedy, actors who wanted to do it, or writers like myself, or my friend Rusty McGee, who's in that picture, he would play some of his music. Some of it would be funny, some of it would be very, really some beautiful tunes that he wrote. And I started doing sets of comedy just off the cuff, and that was really where I started to grow into becoming a comedian.
Well, Star was born. Maybe the fact that we're doing the angry thing, it sets the expectations lower for comedy. So when comedy sparks out of these angry moments, it's really, really, funny. And I'll tell you what, I didn't know this background of you, this written 40 plays and had done all this other stuff. And I really came to love you on The Daily Show. And because I was such a fan of your performances there, we picked out one that we think was really prescient. I think it was 2019, and you were talking about parents who didn't want to vaccinate their kids. They were called anti-vaxxers back then, and little did we know how significant the term anti-vaxxers was going to become. But let me go back to 2019 and play that moment. Let's have a look. This is you on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart.
Vaccines are a public good, and I'm willing to do my part to end this epidemic of stupid. So for any kids or teens out there whose parents won't let them get their shots, here's my offer. I will adopt you. Will I be a good father? No! I'll gamble your college fund, I'll hit on all your girlfriends and boyfriends. And did I mention I drink vodka from a Purell bottle? But I'd still be better than anti-vaxxer parents.
I'll bet you had no idea how important that little clip would end up being.
No, I had no idea. But I did know when I did it that there would be a backlash, and there was. It was like,
yeah?
Oh, yeah. People wrote in, you are really trying to take away our freedom. You don't know what you're talking about. Scientific proof. There's all sorts of proof, yada, yada. There you go. And I'm like, and it's Twitter. So, I said, and I don't respond. I'm not going to sit here with 146. I'm not going to have an argument with you folks about this. Go ahead. And they did, though. I mean, they just went nuts.
Had their say. So do you, something like a lot of comedians have a thin skin. Like it's hard to hear people criticize. It's hard to hear hecklers. But I can imagine if you get once social media hits and you get thousands of people with whatever issue they have, are you good with that? Are you as tough as they think you are?
I'm kind of initially I go, oh, and then I go, what are you talking about? This is somebody in the middle of who knows where saying this thing. You're insane for responding. You're insane for thinking about responding. But I get what upsets me is when what I have said allows someone to say something that is so profoundly stupid that it's out there. And that's when I get really
yeah, but Louis, doesn't it give you free material? Like if somebody does come back with some social media comment that's just, asinine, you got a new act.
Yeah, in a way, but it's almost as if, especially over the last 4 years, it was. I kept feeling people would go, "Boy, he made comedy easy," and I'd said, "Yeah, he made comedy easy." The leader, the last leader, made comedy easy. The same way that that a stroke makes a nap easy.
Okay.
So that's actually not the joke because I can't think because the intro is different.
I was just gonna say that's a clip that's gonna go viral.
that's the one that. But I did that in the. But I've used that was my favorite joke about it. I can't remember the beginning now, but it was really. But a lot of the stuff that was going on was it was like it was fictional. They were writing. It was not. It was so funny, it wasn't funny anymore. It was disturbing. It was like, no, we're not going to go down that road. We are not going to do this. We cannot have this discussion. You don't get to do this. You don't get to say this. You don't get to call John McCain a coward. You don't get it. You don't get to say Mexicans or this. You don't. No. And there were no adults in the room. And on Twitter, there was no, it was interesting. And on Twitter, I found is my friend Kathleen Madigan, another very funny comedian who kind of, drove me into this thing, into that lane, said, these people, watch your audience will go after them. And they did.
Well,